Hey everybody, this is an interesting video today. Thank you, by the way, to Kamikars, Anglo Blacks, and whoops, yeah, we got volume. I got to fix this volume thing. As usual, live TV is never easy. But who did I miss as well? Sir Winston, Anglo Blacks, and Kamikars, and anyway, thank you as well to Sean Donnelly and TD Tesla and K8 all for being here. This is an interesting video today. It ties into my retire on cocktail strategy. People wanted updates. And it also ties in a conversation I was having with Sanjay earlier this morning. And we were talking about billionaires. And I shared with him a number as to how many Tesla shares you probably need to be a billionaire in the future. And then he asked me, can you break this down for millionaires and decamillionaires and centimillionaires and billionaires? And that's what I did. And I created a path to this. And I created a couple of new variations of allocations around Sortino ratios and optimal allocations, etc. So it's going to be a fun video. And also one other thing too, it's going to have some very shocking data. But remember, it's better to be forewarned. Forewarned is forearmed. And also it'll include some stretch goals. You should always strive for what is maybe almost impossible. And that way you'd be very happy with your result. So let's get into it. And thank you all for being here. This is a special one. And it's one that I was very excited to build. But again, let's go. And it does tie into the Retire on Cocktail. People wanted updates, so consider this a mini 2025 update. And the market is doing good today. We have Bitcoin nearly at 100,600. It's just flirting with 100K all the time, but we'll get to that later. And of course, this is not financial advice, just a guy on the internet. Shout out as well to Patreon. This is the best channel ever, and Patreon is so worth it. Thank you. Loud and Proud 9070. I've been a part of many paid groups, and they always feel random and chaotic. James feels like an uncle who walks you through his thought process and investments. Thank you so much. That's probably one of the kindest things I've heard in a long time. So appreciate it. And every time I hear the word uncle or whatever, I feel old. But hey, I've got the scars to prove it. Let's get in. First of all, this is going to be broken into 3 or 4 different chapters. First one will be the mindset, how to think like a billionaire. I don't expect people to be a billionaire, but there'll be a few here in this audience that will become billionaires over the next 10, 20 years. I'm pretty certain of that. But there's also some hard news that comes along with this too. What not to do, as well as how to prepare, and then a whole bunch of allocations and projections out to 2032. First of all, let's get into some numbers. A lot of numbers in this video as usual. This is the number of billionaires per country. You can see US has most. US 735 billionaires, China 495 billionaires, India 169, Germany 126, Russia 105. By the way, a lot of the British billionaires are actually in the UK. I don't know how they account for that. UK has 52 billionaires, Brazil 51, Australia 47, etc. Italy, you can see the numbers for yourself. Japan only 40. Very interesting. Now, I wanted to turn that into a per capita set of data to make more sense. And where is the most, I guess, number of billionaires per million people? And the answer is number 1 is in Hong Kong, 8.82 billionaires per million people, the highest, richest place on the planet. Number 2, Switzerland, 4.73 billionaires per million people. And number 3, USA, 2.22 billionaires per million people. And again, you see all the other stats there. Like China is not as impressive when you see these numbers, 0.34 billionaires per million people, but they have a lot of people. And most of the wealth of China is concentrated in Hong Kong. Anyway, that's where they all fled to. So check that out. Japan, very disappointing. But that's probably because of the problems that they have there as well. Anyway, we'll get into some problems and dangers in the near future. But I want to break down how these people think, and some interesting statistics around billionaires. Like in the past 10 years, the number of billionaires has more than doubled. Of the top 10 billionaires in the world, 4 of them are under 50 years of age. And 15 of the Forbes 400 members are under 40. And what's also very interesting is only 207 of over 2,000 billionaires inherited their wealth. 90% are self-made. Well, more than 72%. Some had a little bit of a help with a little bit of a start, but again, very driven. And 46 of the 50 wealthiest Americans on the Forbes billionaire list had been married at some point. So you need a strong partner behind you. And this might be a little bit sad, but I think it's kind of optimistic. The odds of becoming a billionaire today are 1 in 457,000. I'll show you how it's going to get a lot higher sooner as well because of change that's coming down the pike. Again, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy this show, guys. The most exciting video I've done this year so far. Anyway, let's get into more data around the mindset. What does it take to be a billionaire? And again, even if we're just talking about billionaires, same thing applies to millionaires, all right? It's just, forget the title per se. But billionaires are often elusive figures. They live their lives behind closed doors, a little bit like me, with only about 2,000 in the world. I do believe, though, this number will grow very fast. And billionaires have a relentless work ethic, self-belief, extreme levels of confidence, and the ability to solve big problems or think outside the box. If you are a sheep following other sheep, you're not going to make it. Also, billionaires dream big. They are very stubborn. They don't give up. And they have the naivety to pursue seemingly impossible ideas, like you name it. And you know a lot of the examples of these people as well. Also, billionaires make very few but excellent high conviction trades. Many billionaires make their money from investing. Some make it from developing a big idea, like a spaceship or an electric car or PayPal or whatever the case may be. You can guess who I'm hinting at here. Or they're very good investors, capital allocators, you know, the David Sackses of the world and many others. So now that we have that behind, let's talk about, you know, because this is an investing channel, how people can actually make a big difference. And I always talk about how sometimes you get one trade every decade, the trade of the decade or trade of a lifetime. You just need one to have a huge impact on your standing. And that's why I always say be a sniper in the woods and be patient. And this is, shout out to Peji and Joseph, a brilliant interview that I found very profound. But it's basically how one trade can change the game with Joseph. And Joseph looked at Tesla, and this was, I think, back in 2019. He invested about $900,000 in Tesla right before Q3 earnings, if I recall. Price is somewhere between $12 and $17. And I remember that time very well myself. And he now has $25 million in Tesla. Average price, say $12 to $17. And that is a very high conviction trade. Again, that large amount of Tesla, nearly 60,000 shares, is an important number we'll get into in a second. And this is Joseph's conviction, his portfolio allocation. He is 90% Tesla, 8.6% NVIDIA. See the pattern here? He's all in on AI and robotics. He has a little bit of Barron Partners Fund, which includes SpaceX and Tesla, of course, and Dogecoin, etc. Vanguard Growth Index is random, but it's a tiny allocation. But again, high conviction, few assets is what I've been preaching since I began this whole thing, is key. Now, let's talk about this as well. Many things can happen. Again, you can get this trade of the decade or trade of a lifetime that changes your family. MicroStrategy, it's up 24x since 2020 or 2022, whenever you pick the date. You have other trades we did back in September, Sol Strategies, it's up 30x since September. That is actually bonkers to think about. And we all know where other assets have come. The Solanas of the world, some of the other assets, Bitcoin, they're all very special. And if you can time them right, they can be very life-changing as long as you allocate with conviction and you balance risk and reward. It's very key. Now, a little bit of history before we get into some Bitcoin stuff, and then we get into the bad news stuff, and then we get into the modeling stuff. It's a big story that takes me a while to paint. But this is from Archie, Bitcoin Archive. 16 years ago today, Satoshi Nakamoto said, it might make sense just to get some in case it catches on. If enough people think the same way, this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And once it gets bootstrapped, There are so many applications that you could effortlessly put a few cents in a website and drop the coins into a vending machine. Again, if Bitcoin catches on, it makes sense to get some. He said this 16 years ago today. May Satoshi rest in peace. Anyway, that is profound. And I always share the wealth pyramid too, because there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. Yesterday, I made a video about how things are about to get very nutty in the Bitcoin space. But the Bitcoin wealth pyramid, people always ask for updates. This is January 2025. The cost to be in the top 0.1% of Bitcoin holders is now $2.1 million. You could have done this for 400 grand not too long ago, okay? You need more than 21 Bitcoin to be in here. To be in the top 0.5%, 663,000. To be in the top 1%, you need to invest 341,000 today. You need more than 3.5 Bitcoin. And to be in the top 5%, you need about $13,000 worth or greater than 0.133 Bitcoin. The point of this, and the point of all my models and all of the plans, is to build a plan, set a goal, set a target, and execute against that goal relentlessly. Okay? That's how you succeed. Have a plan, stick to it. Very important. Also, some more good Bitcoin news. 61% see Bitcoin. I know it's a bit of a crazy range, but 61% of financial advisors think Bitcoin could be $100,000 to $250,000 by the end of the year 2025. A lot of people are now talking about 200 to 250K, which is crazy bullish considering it fell to 15.5, again, only about 2 years ago. And part of the bullishness as well is Cynthia Lummis. She is nonstop out there, bullish as hell. She sees, and we've heard this before from the Bitcoin conference last year and many other things, but we could cut our debt in half in 20 years by buying 1 million Bitcoin. Good luck finding 1 million Bitcoin. It'll be hard to wrangle that from the long-term holders' hands, but at the same time, fun to watch. And the other news regarding the SPR, more and more stuff comes in every day. Another crazy good news too, another millionaire and billionaire secret is to borrow against your wealth, borrow against your assets. Bitcoin-backed loans are here. They're here in many different formats. I did not see this one coming from Coinbase, but now you can borrow against your Bitcoin without selling it, rolling out to US users, excluding New York. So sorry for everybody in New York right now. But more collateral assets and regions to come, powered by Morpho Labs and built on Base. The future of finance is on-chain. This is just a window, not saying to do it. I personally wouldn't do it. I think it's still a very immature industry. But just wait for the players like Fidelities of the world to come into this space. And then you can never have to sell your Bitcoin. You can borrow against it by which to live, as it will appreciate over time with violent undulations as well, as always. Now, back to the SPR. The strategic Bitcoin reserve odds keep rising. Now, 50% shot of it happening from Polymarket in 2025. Within the first 100 days, it's about 36 to 38%. In 2025, 50%. And before January 1st, 2026, 57%. So again, I don't know if they're going to get 1 million Bitcoin, but this thing could happen. And on top of this, there's 8 other states in the United States that are looking to do it, and countries all around the world as well. Dominoes could topple in 2025, which will take us to the moon, literally. It's bonkers. Now, I got to get into the bad news. There's going to be some... I don't want them to be taken as depressing statistics, but it's so important. Shout out to, of course, Mr. Cervantes. Forewarned is forearmed. To be prepared is half the victory. That's the reason I share this, okay? It is so important. This quote suggests, being aware of potential challenges or threats or dangers helps you face them and prepare and build a plan. And half the victory is from this, okay? This is why I do this all the time. It gives you a substantial advantage. So again, don't think this following news is being very depressing. I've got a couple of quick hits here and then another one at the end. But again, it's good to know this stuff and not be blind. First of all, and your financial advisors will not tell you this stuff either, by the way. Be careful of the assets you bank on. Diamonds are not forever. This is the diamond price tanking, of course. It's a De Beers monopoly. It's garbage. don't think you can hold things like gold and diamonds and make it. Surprisingly, though, gold over the last 13 years did have their best year ever, and they're now 0.91% correlated with the S&P 500, which is interesting because normally it's a safe haven asset, but it shows you how insecure the world is right now. Again, but if you divide gold performance over the last 40 years divided by M2 growth, you're stuffed. You may have made a little bit of money in 2024, but that's typically not going to continue. Again, I do believe Bitcoin will devour gold. We've already seen that in ETF statistics as well. A bottle of red, thank you for coming. Now, this is the beginning of the really, really ugly news, okay? This is a stunning chart that shows you the average hourly wage divided by M2 money supply. You can do the same thing with gold, and the average hourly wage divided by GDP growth, okay? They are the pinky purpley lines, and then you've got the green and the teal lines, the S&P 500 divided by M2 money supply, and the S&P 500 over US GDP. Now, if you look at the decline in the ratios involving wages, red and purple, this shows you that wage earners are not keeping up with economic growth or money supply expansion, going all the way back to the 1970s. All right, this is wage stagnation in real terms, and horrifyingly so. And there's more scary statistics coming. The growth in the ratios involving the S&P 500 green and blue lines indicate that assets like stocks have been a way better hedge and have benefited a lot more than wages. So if you are depending on wages and not invested in the stock market, you're not going to make it. Another scary statistic, in 1971, it took 25 hours of labor, average salary, wage, to buy one share of the S&P 500. Today, it takes 195 hours. Again, it shows you the value of our corporations has grown 650% faster than our wages. And another scary statistic, the S&P 500 grows 75 times while wages fell 90%. If it's not clear right now, American wages have fallen by 90% since 1971. That's when it came off the gold standard. But stock market is up 75 times. All right. The point of this is you have to be invested to make it. Not financial advice. Holding fiat will kill you. And remember, wage slavery is a thing. I hate to use the term, but it will not make you rich unless you invest alongside it. Period. So I want to get that ugly stuff out of the way. And another stunning news. It's not only what you invest in, but also where you invest. Okay, this is kind of staggering for our friends in Europe, where a lot of my audience is from. 16 years ago, the EU and the US economies were the same size. Today, the US economy is 50% larger than the entire EU combined, and the EU has gotten a lot bigger in that time frame as well. You know, Europe is, committing economic suicide in a very bad way. So again, if you are in parts of the world where the economy is not growing and you're not invested, you're doubly stuffed. I sorry to bear such bad news, but that's reality. And it's going to get worse. Let me explain why. This is a recipe for weak growth, high debt, and high taxes. Government spending across the developed world is now half of the economy in many cases. South Korea, 38%, US, 38%, Germany, nearly 50%, UK, 41%, Japan, 44%, France, 58.5%, Norway, 50%. I know Norway have oil. Sweden, 49.2%. Again, this is, this drives weak growth, high debt, high taxes, low productivity, and persistent inflation. Okay, this is a kiss of death because governments do not know how to invest money. Never have, never will. That might change on January 20th. I'm not sure, but we shall see. Anyway, I did warn you lots of ugly, scary news, but the good news will get better. So be prepared. And also, everybody, be careful of debt. Never borrow to speculate. I'm your Huckleberry. Thank you for coming. This is from Peter Sainong. Credit card defaults just hit the highest level since the 2008 crisis. If anybody remembers the global financial crisis, it was a dark time. Credit card defaults are up 50% over the last 12 months. And this is the financial collapse of blue-collar America. Yet another legacy of the terrible, terrible situation that's happened. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, so be prepared for that. But if you have a credit card at more than 10% interest, focus on getting rid of that first, because that is an albatross around your throat. That will strangle you to death, okay? Now, let's get into some good news as to how we can dig ourselves out of this hole. Again, using some of the elements of a billionaire mindset. First of all, warning, not financial advice, just a guy on the internet. And this method of investing has been very successful for me in the past. It doesn't mean it's going to be successful in the future, but let's get into it. So, per Sanjay's question earlier this morning, how many shares to hit these different thresholds? So I put together my little retire on cocktail sheet. We got Bitcoin, we got Tesla, we got Solana, we got MicroStrategy. And you can pick whatever assets you want as long as they're going to be disruptive and have very good risk-reward balance. Very important. So I put in my bull targets for 2032. So Bitcoin to $1 million. A lot of people say, no, it's going way higher. Yep, probably is. But again, I like to sandbag everything. Bull targets. Bull target for Tesla, 8,000. Bitwise bull target for Solana 2032 is 6,600. Actually, I think that's their 2030 target, but I put it in for 2032 anyway, 6,600. And MicroStrategy, which I hold too, 2747. And I'll talk more about that afterwards, but that assumes a very low NAV premium multiple, which I believe will go to maybe parity in the year 2032, probably sooner. Anyway, how many of these things do you need to be a millionaire? In 2032, you need 1 Bitcoin, you need 125 Tesla shares. I always stress people should try to get to 300 Tesla shares for years now. And that was very easy to do when it was at $100 or at $17. Harder now at 400 plus. The number of Solana to be a millionaire, 152. And the number of MicroStrategy to be a millionaire, 364 shares. Remember, you can see very clearly that some things will run faster than others. Now, to be a decamillionaire, $10 million, you need 10 Bitcoin, 1,250 shares, 1,500 Solana, or 3,600 MicroStrategy. And to be a centimillionaire, I think I spelled that wrong, but $100 million, you need 100 Bitcoin. And to be a billionaire, you need 1,000 Bitcoin. To be a billionaire on Tesla, you need 125,000 shares. Reminder, Joseph has 60,000 shares that he bought with 900 grand in 2019. So again, he's halfway, if my numbers are correct, to being half a billionaire by the year 2032. Could be a lot higher. We'll talk about that in a second. That's the first set of milestones. So you pick your target and work to it and think about your allocations. And I'll show you some example allocations in a minute. The sandbag targets as well. I'll already hear people groan. My Sandbag 2032 Bitcoin target is 796K. Could be a lot higher. And may I remind everybody as well, all of these assets could go to zero. They may not even exist in the year 2032. So bear that in mind. That's why I always say keep your tap dancing shoes on. But again, if Bitcoin does hit 796K, you need 1.26 Bitcoin to be a millionaire. Okay? You need, Tesla goes to 3,100, you need 323 shares. That's why I always stress 300 shares. It's not by chance theyese numbers are like this. And VanEck, 312 Solana with their 3,200 target by 2030. And MicroStrategy, around 382 shares. And you can see the rest of the numbers. You want to be a billionaire, you need 1,250 Bitcoin, 322,000 Tesla, etc., etc. Now, my bear targets for your milestones, again, very sandbagged here. Bitcoin only goes to 578K. Remember, Bitcoin right now is north of $100,000. So that's it's only a 5.7x over the next 7 years. Not much. It's going to go a lot more than that. But anyway, it's sandbagged. 1.73 Bitcoin, or to be a decamillionaire, 17 Bitcoin, etc. 500 Tesla shares, only going to 2,000 in 2032. We're going a lot higher than that, ladies and gentlemen. A lot higher. Solana bear target, $2,100. And MicroStrategy, 1,270. Again, assumes NAV premium of zero. Zero as we go forward. So the point of all this is think about where you want to go, what you need, what your cost of living will be, always control your burn, and then think about your targets. Now, I put together a summary sheet of all of these scenarios, so it's easier for you to get to see exactly what's doing best. And then it makes me think about risk reward. This is the visual of all the asset multiples through 2032. So the Bitcoin bull would be a 10x. The Bitcoin sandbag is a 7.98x, called it 8x. And the bear is 6x from where we are today. Tesla, bull, 20x. As I've been saying, people don't understand. I think Tesla, as I said on 4th of July, Tesla will outperform Bitcoin because of AI. Sandbag, 7.6x. Actually, the sandbag for Tesla is less than the sandbag for Bitcoin. Very interesting. And 4.9x for the bear multiple. That means they don't get the robot off the ground and they don't solve autonomy, etc., etc. Solana, 31.4x from here. Sandbag, 15x and 10x on the bear. And MicroStrategy, 7.6, 7.3, and 3.55. Not much, but again, that assumes the NAV premium goes away and much more treasuries come online by the year 2032. And you can see as well, yellow wins, but it's higher risk, of course. Red is number 2, which is Tesla, but it depends on the actual sandbag multiple versus the bull multiple. Now, the next question is, what happens if you want to have a piece of each, which I think is always good to have a little bit of diversification, not too much, never have 60 of something, have 4 or 5 heavy bets in narratives that matter, like AI, like crypto. That's my plan for now until a new thing comes along, if that's the case. So Tesla, just a quick chart. This is my Tesla valuation model. That was blessed by Cern Basher. You can see if things go really the way many people expect, with infinite ROI on certain types of investments, like you buy a car for $30,000 and it makes you $30,000 a year, that means there'll be infinite demand for that vehicle. It's going to be a moneymaker, especially if you have 5 or 10 of them. But by 2035, the numbers could get so wonky. Technically, we could go to a price of $120,000. I know it sounds completely ludicrous, but that is the exponentiality factor of this company. That's why I am obsessed with it, and many others like Bitcoin, etc. So let's look at 2 different variations of these different models. First of all, retire on cocktail example, allocation. You could do your own example, but I personally want to get to being 40% allocated to Tesla. And to get to $1 million by 2032, you need about 129 shares. Solana, 30% as the dominant chain out there, 143, but very high risk. Be prepared if a Sol killer comes onto the scene. Be prepared to pivot. Tap dancing shoes. You need a quarter of a Bitcoin, and that would represent 20%. And 10% into MicroStrategy, 46 shares. Just ballpark ideas. This will get you to at least $1 million, probably a lot higher by 2032. Okay? Because people are always asking, what goals do they do? If they wanted to get to 10 million, take 10x of all of these. You need 1,290 shares of Tesla, etc., etc. Now, this is another new view, which is the allocation based on Sortino ratio, which balances risk and reward directly. Yes, you could see that Solana could outperform other assets, but the risk is higher. Therefore, the Sortino ratio changes. And here is some examples of them. MicroStrategy, risk-adjusted allocation, per the model, says you should be higher into MicroStrategy, but it looks at historic performance. Okay, it's completely outperformed Bitcoin. That's why it's a heavier load. 30% into Bitcoin, 20% into Tesla, and 15% into Solana. DBF 430, thank you for coming. This will also perhaps get you to 1 million by 2032, but it's up to you. It's up to your risk appetite. It's up to what you like and what you want to get. Or you may only want to get to 500,000 or 300,000 or 10 million. Again, put it all together in your own little spreadsheet, build your plan, back into it. Now, I do have another piece of horrifying news, which the world is not ready for. But again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, as Mr. Cervantes told us. This one is important to note and be prepared for. I believe, if debasement continues at a 14% rate because of global debt, infinite money printing, debasement, etc., there's no way of escaping the debt spiral unless something radical happens, like a strategic business Bitcoin reserve, if a nation state does that. Therefore, $1 million in today, the future value of that in 2032 will be equivalent to approximately 370,700. Again, assuming a 14% annual debasement rate. So this is the rude awakening 2032. If you think you're going to get to $1 million, it's not going to be worth $1 million like it is today. Okay, so if you see a house on the street for $1 million today, odds are it's going to be worth $3 million. Everything will be much more expensive. So I want people to understand that very clearly as well. So again, not only the way I sandbag numbers and price predictions, but I also want to make sure I tread water and make at least a lot more than 14% per year in investing, or we're not going to make it. Now, these other good news is how you can make more. And that is my HODL versus trade split. I try to HODL 80% of my names. Like, I don't sell my Tesla, I stack it. Don't sell my Bitcoin, I stack it, for now at least. And I trade 80%. I trade around different positions like Sol Strategies and some cryptos and some perps and other little assets and some options on different things. And that way you can make a lot more money. You still have your 80% bag. So if you trade really badly and lose your 20%, you still have 80%. And I love to do everything in a Pareto efficient way. So consider that. Also, the team and myself, we've been working now for nearly a year on a thing called a rotation model. And we've proven out if you can time your rotations scientifically between assets, and if you can do it in a tax-free way, you can make a lot more money. So that can help you get to your goal faster. So if you think you have a shot of making $1 million bag by 2032, but that's only going to be worth $370,000, we have ways of getting you higher. So we're working on that, and that's coming soon. And finally, I will remind everybody again, to keep your tap dancing shoes on. We do not know what's going to be dead or alive over the next few years. Everything could go to zero. We need to be on top of narratives, on top of technology and changes in the world. Okay? That was the Billionaire Mindset. And final warning, third one, do not be influenced by do not make the WEF, World Economic Forum, dreams possible. They want you to own nothing and be happy and do what they tell you. Your job is to escape the matrix. So thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. Just some ideas. And a lot of people wanted these things updated more frequently. Everything will change as soon as the investment thesis changes for any of these assets or the loads. You'll see another video from me. So if you want, hit the like and subscribe for these updates. I want to thank everybody for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.